Hey there, I'm a dad who games, and thank you for checking out my video. When I'm not dadding or spousing, I'm playing video games. And when I'm not playing The Sims 4, I'm playing a survival horror. Resident Evil, Dead Island, Dying Light, Visage, and of course, Silent Hill. Needless to say, I've taken to recreating survival horror locations in The Sims 4. The Spencer Mansion from Resident Evil, the Raccoon City Police Department, Resident Evil 2, and 4 locations from Resident Evil 3 in a single lot. The Clock Tower, Hospital, Park, and the ambiguous power plant. I also did a recreation of the house from Visage. But before we get started, while this began as a COVID hobby, I have really been enjoying making content for you. And if you like what you see, please be sure to like this video and maybe leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Also, I want to see where this might take me, and I can only evolve with your support, so hitting subscribe would be absolutely wonderful. Anyway, let's get started. The Silent Hill Medical Campus, specializing in mental health care, was made up of 2 separate hospitals, Alchemilla and Brookhaven. Built as a modern general hospital at the turn of the 20th century, Alchemilla Hospital had been a fully equipped establishment with the latest technologies in order to treat the coal mining residents of Silent Hill. However, an oversight and planning led to overcrowding, and in the mid-1900s, Brookhaven Psychiatric Hospital was built to alleviate the surprising predominance of mental health disorders filling the beds of Alchemilla. A little disclaimer, this is not lore from the video game. Mainly, I'm having my own little RP story time, because I decided to put both of these hospitals on one lot. They aren't even located near one another in the fictional world of Silent Hill. This is my explanation as to why these 2 hospitals would be next to one another. So let's not talk about accuracy to the video game. I'm just playing pretend. Leave me alone. As you can see, these are 2 very large hospitals, each with unique purposes, rooms, layouts, and, well, everything that would make this video super long if I were to explore both hospitals with you. So, we're only going to be touring Alchemilla Hospital today, but don't worry, we'll take a tour of Brookhaven in the next video. Right now, however, it is time to step inside Alchemilla Hospital. Once the beacon of medical care, but then turned into a mental health facility to combat the influx of patients in need of care. We're going to enter through the voluntary admissions entrance. When Brookhaven was built, the focus was on being purposeful and frugal. All of the surplus additional money from shareholders went to the renovation of Alchemilla, which, in more local terms, meant that you only got to come to this particular hospital if you had a bit more wealth than others. Brookhaven was meant for the riffraff. But nonetheless, even the rich had to check themselves in for a head check now and again, and this was the waiting room in which they'd start their road to recovery. Everything from registration to insurance bartering could be done here as your loved one gets a once-over in the adjacent examination and evaluation room. This was the first step in one's treatment planning to assure that the appropriate plan of action was set into place when you're voluntary. If you unfortunately were entering through the involuntary doors, you first needed to make a stop at the first floor security office and personal effects collection area. They needed to make sure that you were in tip-top form before your healing journey through mental anguish could commence. Patients' belongings were securely kept on premises and returned to patients untouched upon discharge. The other side of the security checkpoint is for employees and families of patients, which, okay, pausing RP for a second, I'm not going to lie, in all of the expansion packs I have, there are simply no good 2-door doors that can step in for elevator doors. So all elevator doors are wide open, but I made it work, which you'll see shortly. RP engage. But okay, we've got your walk-through kitchen for staff as well as visitors to the hospital, which, to be clear, the latter wasn't all that common when this place was functional. You were kind of forgotten when you came here. Yet even a fully equipped employee lounge couldn't alleviate the downtrodden staff who fully recognized that they were the only ones who gave a care for the patients. People dropped off their family members like young mothers used to leave their newborns on convent steps. But the need of the hospitals to constantly adapt to shifting mental health demands led to some of the toughest and hardest administrative decisions. When they had to be made, this was the room in which those meetings took place. The cleaning crew always had a hard time keeping up with the clutter, but the information they would sometimes read on discarded documents kept them from complaining. Their plight was considerably insubstantial by comparison. In either case, with our having toured the non-patient areas, it is now time to ascend to the patient floors. When admitted to Alchemilla, you only ever saw the first floor when you entered and when you left. This staff visitor entrance was actually a kind of ceremonious exit for patients. Needless to say, it never functioned as an exit. Now, on the second floor, you can see how I dealt with the non-elevator elevator scenario. And yes, we're also met by another waiting room, as visitors would need to await clearance before entering into the cafeteria that doubled as the patient's mess hall and visitation room. All eating and visiting times were closely monitored by security, but patients rarely got out of line. Maybe security simply treated the patients fairly. Maybe the staff provided an excellent level of care that calmed any would-be aggressive attention-seeking behaviors. Maybe it was the APA-accredited psychiatrists whose offices could also be found on this floor. Or perhaps it was the unspoken acknowledgement that Brookhaven would sometimes be used for patients who ever did misbehave. You didn't want to go to Brookhaven? You didn't act out. Say what you will of how the hospital's fall from grace left a mark of shame upon the people of Silent Hill, there had been a time where the staff was an award-winning one. They did documentaries of the excellent care one could get from Alchemilla after all. Granted, that golden age was merely a blip on Silent Hill's radar, with the very integrity of not only the ground on which they stood, but also of their own sanity collapsing in on itself. The staff of Alchemilla quickly succumbed to the madness that crept throughout the town. Days at work got longer. They got slower, and when sleeping in the psych offices started to become a regular practice, the days just simply never ended. But as time progressed and patients became fewer and fewer, empty patient beds became the go-to home away from home. That's 20 patient beds to choose from, on top of the couches and psychotherapeutic lounges. Yes, you heard me, only 20 beds. They said the same thing then, and it should have been an immediate red flag for the developers of the hospital for severely underestimating how prosperous Silent Hill would become. I suppose they thought that no one would visit a coal miner's town, but Toluca Lake does present some fantastic sunsets when you're leisurely coasting across the water in a chartered boat. It's actually quite romantic. Many photos had been taken, and happy honeymoons spent in Silent Hill. It really was a shame what the coal mine fire ignited in the town. The death count from the fire and subsequent cave-in touched every family, every resident. When your community is completely built, both figuratively and literally, on a single product, well, the toll grew even higher as melancholic loved ones so determinedly sought the company of their dearly departed just one last time. No amount of time spent in the rec room or the arts and crafts room would ever satisfy one's need for recovery. Watching patients try so hard to make a change, the staff could only watch with knowledge that their efforts were futile. You could try and try, but never really get any further from the horrific truth. This is a truth that will be the hallmark of the second portion of this tour. A building in Silent Hill is never just what you see. When the siren calls out, one must prepare for the diabolical shift from the serene silence of emptiness to the twistedly evil alternate incarnation of the same building, the otherworld version of Alchemilla Hospital. No more cleanliness, no more order, no more sense of safety or hope of recovery. Only an eternity of never really knowing why, yet still knowing all the while that you already know. Okay, my little RP adventure is going to have to end here. The stories in the otherworld are dependent on the person who arrives, so instead, I'm going to commentate on how I wanted to try and recreate the aesthetic the way that it could have appeared in video games. That is to say that I didn't try to recreate specific rooms or scenes. The primary requirement for making this Silent Hill was to have this otherworld hospital map mirror the normal hospitals above. Oh, that's right. In case I failed to mention, this entire otherworld hospital is a duplicate of the hospital on the surface, but completely in the basement levels of the same lot. Yeah, there were some major FPS issues whenever I put down a fence or a wall. Ugh. Which in this 3-floor room occurred a lot, for as you can see, there are many fences. Cyclone fences are like a necessary component to any Silent Hill build. Hill build. That said, in addition to simply copying the map and redesigning it in this evil industrial-looking factory style, I focused my build on 3 separate 3-story mega rooms. We already saw the first and largest that, in the normal world, would have consisted of the rec room, cafeteria/visitation room, and the kitchen/patient exit. We're now coming up on the second mega room that I completely pulled from out of the air. This entire room is what would be the bathrooms in the regular hospital, and I simply let my imagination go a bit wild. We're greeted with the first of 2 camera rooms used to record the action that occurs in the sealed apartment on the other side of the 2-way mirror. Just above the recording area, we can see the catwalk from where security officers toss the 2 patients into the apartment below. All this in the name of sport, as the powers that be observe the 2 mentally unstable individuals fight to see who can survive the longest. Yeah, I'm not sure from what dark place this room came from, but I honestly was just thinking of the kind of random stuff you would see in a Silent Hill game. They can get really screwed up. But with this being the other world of a hospital, I figured I'd keep to the theme of medical torture. You know, no big whoop. Which is really something that can be seen in the final mega room. But first, an ascent, which I honestly dressed up a bunch of female mannequins to look like the iconic nurses from the game, but they just look super lame, so I got rid of them. And here is the final room. The patient rooms have been stripped of their hinges, with a catwalk in place for use in observing the patients in the general population cells below. Each of the 2 offices have been removed to leave a drop to what previously had been the voluntary admittance waiting room. I essentially removed everything and left only a staircase to the lower landing. It's on the bottom floor where things started to get a little cramped. The huge AC unit I plopped in the middle of the waiting room, as well as the columns, are really a bit overkill, I think. But it all came together to really drive home that this is Silent Hill, complete with experimentation rooms. The rest of the mega room mimics the exact layout of the normal first floor. My big draw to designing this section in this way was completely due to my desire to fill the place with catwalks. They just lend to the feeling of being unsafe with every step. As is true with every one of my builds, this one was done without any CC and only using Twisted Mexie's Better Build By mod, which I highly recommend for anyone wanting to get into building in The Sims 4. Fitting that the siren sounds, beckoning us back to the normal world, just as our tour comes to an end. I hope the memory stays with you, or you can download the lot by searching for EAID, A Dad Who Games. Next time, we'll take a look around both the normal and otherworld versions of Brookhaven Hospital. For this one, I went even further down the Silent Hill rabbit hole. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you've appreciated my blending classic survival horror with The Sims 4. To be clear, this isn't my first trip to the rodeo, and you can find my videos for Resident Evil, Visage, and other video game mega builds on my channel. And again, if you've enjoyed what you've watched, please consider subscribing to not only see more of my building videos, but also to catch me live, because I regularly stream on YouTube. Following me on Twitter will definitely make sure that you know when I'm live next, as well as other information both helpful and completely trivial. Well, thanks again for watching, and until the next, have a day.